and antidepressants on the street help, sex helps, etc. Those things that help in the short term tend to be damaging in the long term. A lot of people die early, and the whole sequence is lost. So how can we improve the future? Well, three things occur to me. One, understanding that these problems are common, and that's just barely beginning. Routinely identifying cases in clinical practice, that has been heavily resisted so far. Now, there may be signs of it's beginning to break down. The Gunderson Clinic here in the Midwest is making a major effort to integrate case study findings in all of its primary care practice. But these things are so complicated and difficult and expensive to attempt to deal with after the fact that if ever there was a case for primary prevention, this is it. In my mind, primary prevention would be figuring out how to improve parenting skills across the nation. We don't know how to do that, but it's the right problem to focus on, I strongly believe. How do you use the information in the office? Well, here's where we carry all of this out. And ultimately, step one of our comprehensive medical evaluation process involved filling out a 10-page medical history questionnaire at home, not on a clipboard in the waiting room. Key distinction. We then fed it into a digital scanner, picked up all the yes answers, gave us a nice 2-3-page laser printout. What we knew about a patient before even going into an exam room to meet them was really quite extraordinary. So, detailed questionnaire, comprehensive history, not symptom-initiated, comprehensive. Probably even better done by internet, but we haven't explored that yet. Here's what we had from a real patient. Here's a woman sexually molested as a child, threatened as an adult by a sexual partner. Partner has threatened or abused her children, etc. No longer sexually active, so on. Recurrent abdominal pain. Use street drugs like an HIV test. Well, what do you do with this? What we did was say to a patient, I see on the questionnaire that. Can you tell me how that's affected you later in your life? And we listened. And we implicitly accepted a key idea that took a while to recognize. I see on the questionnaire that you were the one who discovered your father's body when he hanged himself. Can you tell me how that's affected you later in your life? I see on the questionnaire that you were molested as a kid. Can you tell me how that's affected you later in your life? And we listened, period. After we're doing this for a couple of years, a German mathematician comes by who has a startup data mining company now on the New York Stock Exchange. And he offers as a gift to carry out a 130,000 patient study, 2.5 years throughput for the department, to see whether the addition of these childhood trauma questions has any measurable effect. Incredibly, he found that it triggered a 35% reduction in doctor office visits in the next year compared to their year before, and an 11% reduction in ER visits. That has multi-billion-dollar implications. Amazingly, it has gone nowhere in Kaiser Permanente yet. Yeah, I think it'll happen, but these people have pointed out to me the term theory of disease took a long time to be accepted. It has caught on with school systems, however, with police departments, with judicial systems, with state legislatures, who see the massive economic implications of this for their state Medicaid budget costs. So this has been a very interesting experience. In summary, what we saw for practice implications that routinely investigating and incorporating childhood life experiences as part of comprehensive adult medical evaluation is acceptable to patients. We've done this with 440,000 people in one setting now. 0 patient complaints, a number of letters of thanks from patients. It's been affordable. You have to restructure the way the office is set up, obviously, but it can be affordable and powerfully beneficial. Memorable note from an old lady on a piece of paper from a pad written in pencil. She writes, "Thank you for asking. I feared I would die and no one would ever know what had happened." So we saw that it's possible to move from our current symptom-reactive mode of practice and start dealing with basic causes and thereby improve care while markedly reducing its costs, and that a trauma-oriented comprehensive medical history has been demonstrated to have major benefits and is proposed as the routine entry mechanism into all ongoing care, be it medical, psychological, or institutional. This is doable, and it's acceptable to patients. It's not readily acceptable to colleagues, because medical schools don't teach this. But if one were to try to illustrate how to do this, I would strongly suggest videotaping someone doing this comfortably with the patient, making a 4 or 5 minute videotape and distributing that widely so people could see what it looks like. Oh, yeah, well, I guess I could do that, and try it. So in conclusion, we saw that adverse childhood experiences are common, but overwhelmingly unrecognized, that they're linked to major problems later in life, is strong, proportionate, and logical. Maybe you've heard patients explain the logic of it. They are the nation's most basic public health problem. And it's comforting to us to mistake intermediary mechanisms for basic cause. Oh, the reason those kids are fat is because that damn McDonald's moved into town. That what presents as the problem may be someone's attempted solution to problems we know nothing about. And that treating their solution may be threatening and cause people to flee treatment. And that primary prevention is presently the only realistic population approach. As I said before, we don't know how to do that, but it's the right problem to focus on. And last, change has been resisted by us in spite of enormous benefits. If you want further information, it is readily available on the internet. Simply use ACE study as a search term on the internet and on YouTube, and you'll be really surprised at how much information is available there. I believe we have time for questions.
So we have time for a few questions, please.
Can everybody hear me if I speak? All right. Excellent talk. I really appreciate it. I found it very illuminating. Much of what you say is very logical, and so it appeals to a lot of things. I do have a question, though. Kind of the recent, almost epidemic, if you will, of increasing obesity, increasing overweight in this country, increasing drug use. Do you believe there's a corresponding increase in ACEs approximately 30 years ago that contributed? And we've also seen a significant drop in smoking. How does your ideas of ACE being a strong determinant of these types of things play into kind of the modern curves we're seeing? I mean,
Sure.
is there a huge increase?
We had enough people in the study to be able to study birth dates across the 20th century. The average age, as I said, was 57, but the range was 26 to 94. There was no change in the median ACE rate across the 20th century. So in that regard, things were not measurably better or worse now than they had been 75 years ago. In terms of why the big upsurge in obesity and so forth, two things come to mind. One, the major increase in the divorce rate. I mentioned before the very distinct relationship of childhood onset obesity to parental divorce. It's not the only issue, but it's a very common one and overwhelmingly unrecognized. So big difference in divorce rates now compared to 75 years ago. Other change, geographic mobility. I grew up in the New York City area, relatives all around, grandma a couple of blocks away, cousins all over the place, up the street, around the corner, and so on. When we moved to California, suddenly it became obvious we had left the whole family system behind. I think that's a major change for a lot of people. The significance of a family support system has been lost at a markedly increased rate with geographic mobility around the country. So those are two things to feed in. Others, certainly easy availability and affordability of high-calorie food, but that's simply an intermediary mechanism, not a basic cause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving this very eye-opening discussion talk. The question that I have, I focus more on pediatric research, and so your talk was really focused on the adverse child events of the adult and their adult chronic conditions. But you did state the epigenetic effects, and I know that there is research that is being conducted on the epigenetic effects of the offspring of parents who had adverse childhood events. And I was wondering if you could comment on what is it that you would recommend we start thinking about when we're talking about primary prevention in children who aren't personally experiencing those events at that moment, but their parents did a generation earlier?
Yeah, I really can't answer your question in a way that would be satisfactory to me, simply because I don't have experience with seeing, children as patients. So I just simply cannot answer that, unfortunately. Obviously, part of the problem there is how does one get this information from a little kid? Well, it's easy from a teenager. From a little kid, it's probably best gotten by inference, by collecting a detailed family history on their parents. And the explanation would be, to understand what risks the kid might be under, we need to get a detailed history on you, etc. So that is the closest I can come But it reminds me of the importance of getting the information initially by an inert mechanism rather than face-to-face. It's too easy to screw up face-to-face. There are too many potentials for interpersonal difficulty. Well, this doctor's too young to understand, this one's too old to understand, I'd rather talk to a lady doctor, I'd rather talk to somebody who's Polish or Korean like me that would understand me, etc. All of that seems to disappear with a well-devised inert mechanism. In our experience, paper-based questionnaire, had a huge experience with it, probably better on the internet in a digital format, because that allows you to provide little bits of micro-feedback that is greatly appreciated by patients. You know, have you ever been diagnosed with emphysema? Yes. Well, the feedback might be, it's really important for someone like you to understand the significance of getting immunized against influenza every year, because that is a very threatening disease with this condition. That's not good.
Matt Gilman from NIH, thanks for that compelling talk. So my question is, to what extent have you looked at various combinations of the ACEs within the number of categories? So you can get to a number 3 or a number 4 in different ways. So there might be different combinations of the individual factors.
The question essentially is, how do the ACEs rate with each other in terms of destructiveness?
Right, and then what would you do about it?
And we did study that, and we found, as an example, it didn't matter how you put together ACE score 5 in general. Now, for an individual, it might matter significantly, but basically the 10 categories were essentially co-equal in terms of destructiveness. We're a real surprise. So, you know, using ACE score 5 just as an example, it didn't matter how you put together that ACE score 5, the risks were essentially going to be the same.
Hi, my name is Linda School of Public Health. Thank you for the very thought-provoking talk. I wanted to ask you about the office visit where you actually asked the person about their experience and how that affected them, and then what happens next. So do you actually offer them counseling services, refer them to mental
There
health
was
services?
no next. The question is essentially, how did that affect the 35% reduction occur? Believe me, we thought a great deal about that, because hearing that people would say to me, 35, how'd you do that? You sent everyone to therapy, right? No, we essentially sent no one to therapy. Well, how'd you do that? We spent a lot of time thinking, how did we do that? And ultimately, I saw that we had really created a lay analog of confession in the Catholic Church. And I'm not saying that as a religious person, because I'm not. But confession is a very interesting process. It's been in use for 1,800 years, suggesting, maybe it meets some basic human need. And in that process, it is structured to enable a person to tell someone important to them something deeply shameful about themselves, typically for the first time, and come out of that a couple of minutes later realizing that they're still accepted in this group. And I believe that's what we did.
And did you find that there were individuals who didn't have the self-awareness to actually connect the fact that their childhood adverse experiences were related to what they were doing?
Absolutely, and some of that was in some of these, video clips of patients that I've shown. On the other hand, there were people who suddenly discovered in the course of telling us this information, oh my God, I never thought about the relationship that I just described. So it occurred several different ways. Now, is what we did all that can be done? No. But what else could be done? Well, the problem with conventional psychotherapy, and I'm a big believer in that, is that it is an inefficient process, effective but inefficient. That's very costly. Not many patients tell you, don't worry, doctor, I put aside $50,000 for psychotherapy, etc. Two things to keep in mind. Hypnosis, if you can find a capable hypnotherapist, and the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis website lists them by city across the country, and the other is EMDR, a relatively new form of psychotherapy. Both have the same advantage in that significant benefit can occur in a very small number of visits. I believe we're seriously out of time. People are.
Yeah, we'll continue this conversation with a panel. We have a slight change in the program. We don't have a student prize paper to present, so we'll continue with a panel focusing on the question of how ACEs awareness is changing the practice of medicine. We've invited 4 panelists: Dr. Bob Shapiro, who's a pediatrician, a professor of pediatrics, and the director of the Mayerson Center for Safe and Healthy Children here at Cincinnati. Christy Odia, who's associate professor of family community medicine at UC. Bob Ammerman, who's a clinical psychologist and the scientific director of the program Every Child Succeeds, which is a home visiting program for first-time low-income mothers. And Ted Folger, who's an epidemiologist in the Division of Biostatistics and Epidemiology at Cincinnati Children's. And the questions are, for the panelists, 5 minutes each. Please describe your experience with ACEs and with ACE awareness, and give us some insight on what additional evidence do we need that epidemiologists can actually help the health